All right, welcome everybody. This is another episode of Remodelers on the Rise. I don't know what number it is, but we are well into the 200s. If you haven't listened to every single one of them, what are you doing? Come on, you got car time. You got time you're driving around. Who wouldn't want this energetic, in your face, kind of squeaky, high-pitched voice in your ear more and more? But whether you've watched one or whether you watched 200, I really appreciate you listening to the podcast. I have a wonderful guest with me today. His name is Nick Kornea, or if I was fancy, how would you say? Kornea? Is that what you said, Nick?
Kornea.
Kornea,
right.
I'm from the Midwest. We're going Kornea. He is with LBK Design Build. He's out in the beautiful state of Pennsylvania, arguably the second most beautiful state behind Michigan. What's your thought on that?
I've been to Michigan. It's pretty beautiful, so I won't challenge that.
You were up in the Upper Peninsula recently, right?
I was.
Ah,
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
how was the experience? I remember you were heading that way last time we saw each other. And was it everything you'd hoped for?
Everything is better. Really cool people, and I discovered learned what a pasty was,
Ah, yes.
and I forget the name of it, but the Uper hat.
Mm-hmm.
I got me one of those.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, pasties at the surface of like, wait, we're putting meat inside and vegetables inside what? But it is worth it. Fun fact for you Midwesterners, Michigan and Ohio once had a war, and we traded the city of Toledo for the entire Upper Peninsula, and I would say Michigan made out pretty well on that. That's it for the history lesson. Nick is what I would kind of epitomize as a remodeler on the rise. A few months ago, I think you were kind of behind it a little bit, but he may have put the bug in the ear of a nary chapter out in Pennsylvania. And wouldn't you know it, I was able to head out and speak to their group, and I was able to speak out of Nick's beautiful showroom there in Pennsylvania. And we had lunch. He was kind enough to take me out to lunch. Would we describe it as sushi, Asian fusion? What would we describe it as?
Yeah, it was like an amazing fusion.
Yes.
Mix of sushi and Korean.
Yes, and it wasn't Nick's first time there, so I'm like, dude, just order whatever. There was like this ice cream cones shaped thing that I still have very fond memories of. What was it called?
I believe it's called the crunchy spicy tuna cucumber hand roll. Long name.
Boom. And if we keep talking about it, you're going to be like, I know you're going to find your way over there this afternoon.
I'm getting hungry.
Yes. So we're going to stop talking about that. But we spent the couple hours there having lunch, and just kind of heard his story of where he kind of started, where the business is right now, and wanted to have him as a guest to just kind of share his story. So what I'd love for you to do, Nick, is give us just a little bit of a background, maybe kind of, where this remodeling industry started for you, and kind of where things are looking at today. So, give us the 4, 5, 6 minute kind of story of that. And then Nick 5P'd for this. If you follow my work, you know that 5P stands for proper preparation prevents poor performance. And Nick is a superstar guest where he's like, hey, I thought about the remodelers listening to this. I thought about my story. I've got kind of 6 main things that I'd like to share and unpack that I think is key to the business and the remodeler that I am today. So give us a little bit of background story, and then we'll get into those 6 kind of main areas.
Sure. So I'm originally from the Brooklyn, Queens area of New York. I grew up in a neighborhood called Ridgewood, Queens. It literally lies on the border of Brooklyn next to Bushwick. And I grew up there, and I moved out to Pennsylvania when I was around 24 years old. My wife and I together, at the time we were dating and engaged, we got married and started our life together here in beautiful Bucks County. Worked with my parents for a little bit for the first few years, and somewhere around 2013, I decided to go off on my own and start my own business. I was always in the field of construction, even while I was in school and college. And our beginnings were mainly focused in the kitchen and bath industry. So we were positioned as a kitchen and bath company or remodeler. And I started out like what I would think most GCs start out with themselves and maybe a couple helpers. And then we gained another carpenter, added another truck. And then at a certain point, I said, it'd be great if we can buy and sell our own cabinets to get cabinets at cost. And so in 2015, we opened up a small 1,200 square foot showroom in the Horsham area of Pennsylvania. got our first cabinet line dealership, took on a few other ones, and we operated that way for the next few years. And I had a client that hired us to do a kitchen remodel, and we had a great relationship with them. And then about 2 years after that, following that, they had called us back to remodel both of their bathrooms, so their kids' bath and master bath. And during our discussion, they had expressed to me that they had their basement remodeled or finished in between these projects. And I said to them, well, why don't you give us a call? And they said, well, I didn't know you did basements. And I'm like, we do everything.
Classic frustration.
So, totally left money on the table by poor branding. And so right around 2019, around COVID, when COVID kind of started and started coming around, I rebranded our company, changed our name a little bit from Luxury Bath and Kitchens to LBK Design Build. And it was a perfect time during the slowdown to kind of, dial it in and do a new website, get new branding going, and come out on the other side as LBK Design Build. And now we are focused on doing mainly larger projects, so whole home remodels, first floor remodels. We still do kitchen and bath, custom homes, cool custom builds. We do all kinds of stuff.
And so a couple things I heard there. One, 2013 is when you kind of, you'd gotten some training, you gotten some experience, and then struck it out on your own there. And within 2 years, you kind of made this connection of going, by buying the cabinetry through distributors, through different sources, man, if we could buy these direct and kind of cut out some middle folks, there's a lot more margin there. You started paying attention to your numbers a little bit more. And then you realized, okay, if we're going to really start to expand into some of these bigger projects, went through the new branding. The other thing I want people to hear is a lot of people see a remodeler who's doing maybe those projects like the full home remodels, 300,000 this, 400,000 that, 250,000 this. And like they think to themselves, how do I get there? And even what you just described there, if we were to read in between the lines, you start with the kitchen, and then you did some bathrooms, and then you had an opportunity, you got your first bigger one. It is just a process that a lot of times can sometimes take several years, many years, and one leads to the other. And a lot of times, if that full design build is where you're wanting to go, sometimes you just need to be patient and work towards that. That's kind of been the story for you on those types of projects. Yeah.
I agree. And there's also a certain level of commitment that comes along with that. So even with our first showroom space, which was just a little over 1,000 square feet, you do have to commit with, if you were interested in going with the cabinet manufacturer as a dealer, committing and spending some money, maybe 20, 30, 50,000 in display. And then marketing yourself to make sure you get people in the door to sell, so you can turn around and make that profit back to cover those expenses.
Yep, I like it. So let's get into those 6 areas. And I kind of positioned it as you were thinking about your business, you see these 6 areas as the areas that have kind of been the biggest key to success. Did I summarize that proper?
Correct. Yeah.
Good. Cool. So let's start with the team. The team. Old Michigan coach Bo Schembechler, that's his quote. The team. We're going to win as a team. We're going to lose as a team. The team. So when you think of the team and you think of some of the best practices there, what comes to your mind to share?
Well, we'll start by thinking about as you grow your business, putting the right people in the right place. So, hiring has to be done effectively, and it should be done slowly to a certain extent. So in general, we typically follow the philosophy of hire slow and fire fast at LBK. But having those right people in the right places will allow you as a leader to kind of step back and not be the first point of contact for every little problem that goes on a day-to-day basis.
Mm. So for you, what was kind of your first person and maybe the second person that you had in place that kind of allowed you to really take, all right, I used to have that responsibility on my shoulders, and now I'm really able to hand off the primary responsibility for that to somebody else. So who are maybe the first 2? And then just so that folks know, how many team members are you at these days?
We're 13 in the office, 2 in the field.
Okay. So that's even interesting. I might have to ask about that. But who was that first 1 or 2 that really kind of allowed you to start moving in that delegation direction?
In life in general, I typically don't have a lot of luck. So I'm not one to go to like the craps tables or anything like that or play the lotto. But one area I am very lucky in is that the key person in my business, in my life regarding business, is my wife. She's been phenomenal. So as we grew the business, I was able to kind of hand off certain management tasks and even operational tasks to my wife and have her oversee them while I would go off and build the company, so to speak. So he's been a key player for me. He operates as a bit of a general manager for us at LBK, but her official title on the org chart is operations manager.
Yeah.
So all of production and all of design answer to my wife.
Yeah.
Joanna.
And what you said there is something we all need to hear. Why don't you give her a little shout out? Tell her you love her. She's probably listening to this.
I love you, Joanna. Love you with all my heart.
We had a moment there on the Remodelers on the Rise show right there. She's probably tearing up.
The best.
Yeah, she is. I have met her. She is wonderful. I have met her. She is wonderful. / both of you are going to be taking a back seat to that spark plug of a daughter that was running around the showroom when I was there.
She's a firecracker, isn't she?
That girl's going to be running. She ain't going to be running LBK. She's going to be doing that when she's like 16. But then I feel like she'd probably be president or something.
That's the plan. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
She's still pretty young. Yeah.
Yeah. But, one thing that was key in what you said of this idea of you have to free yourself up from being responsible. If you are the one responsible for sales, for estimating, for production, for the office side of things, for financials, there's just, you're only going to be able to grow so much, and you're only going to be able to take on that stress for so long. So identifying the next right thing to do when it comes to, that key hire or the next responsibility handoff, that's something to be thinking about and to be evaluating as we head into the new year as well. What's another thing related to the team side that you wanted to add?
Culture. Culture is a huge part of any company, no matter what size, small, growing, large. A wiser person than me named Jeff Forward, who you might know. I
noticed this when I was moving hats around. I saw that there's a Ford Design Build hat that I received from Jeff not too long ago.
It's a nice hat.
It's a nice hat.
Jeff once told me that a culture will develop within your company whether or not you are a part of it. And if you are not a part of it, you can damn sure guarantee it's not going to be a culture that you like. So being a part of growing that, having the core people within your company, which might look like a leadership team, it might be a husband and wife team, whatever the case is, just working with your team, being on the same page. It could even mean, hiring people as a team to bring on, and who do you feel like is going to be a good fit at your company? Who's going to reflect your company out to the world the way you would if you weren't present?
Yeah. So if I were to ask you, all right, culture, like, Nick, what do you guys stand for? Like, if I'm a potential employee that's coming and you talk about culture, how would you kind of describe that culture to somebody from the outside?
Personality-wise, I'd probably say you have to be a self-performer. Folks that don't pull their own weight, typically within a few months, it's pretty well known that they're not performing their duties. It does hurt the next person down the line if you don't pull your own weight. You have to be able to take a joke. We like to be professional, and we like to think we are with our clients and everything. But in-house, we like to keep things light and just be positive. Just having a good attitude is huge in any industry, but especially in ours when we not only do work in the office here, but we're in people's homes. So if there's negativity throughout each department, it will show in the end, and that's not the type of experience we're trying to show or have our client go through.
Like that.
Positivity.
Yeah, this idea, this could be a takeaway for folks listening to this of, we've heard the phrase culture. Sometimes it's hard to kind of define it or to, kind of articulate it. But every company has a culture and a feel, a set of expectations, what it's like to be part of it. And that may be something to slow down a little bit. And if you were to answer the question that I just asked Nick of like, hey, describe your culture to me, what are the things that come to mind? And when you also think about that, what are some aspects of your culture that you want to improve, that you want to kind of enhance? I think that's a good takeaway for folks. And then there was one other thing that you had mentioned related to the team, related to negativity. and kind of the impact of that in the company. What would you share related to that one?
Negativity and also poor performance. You don't want to let that go on for too long. A rotten apple spoils the bunch. We don't want to create that negativity and it being spared and spread throughout the company. So we want to address it quickly. We want to do it in a positive manner. I'd mentioned not ruling with an iron fist. So we always want to be composed when we deal with negativity in the company. But ultimately, if you think about it from a team member perspective or an employee perspective, imagine you have folks that are working for you and they put in 100%. They stay late. They come in early. They work really hard, and you have a great relationship. And then you have someone that's working alongside them that doesn't do that. Well, wouldn't you question your own work ethic at that point? Like, meaning, like, in simple terms, like, hey, why is it that so and so over here doesn't do their job, and they get paid every week just like I do, and I'm over here killing myself, and I get the same treatment? Now, in our case at least, we do have bonus structures in place. We do have things that we do to incentivize performance, but ultimately, it's just not good practice in general, I would say.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is, dealing when we see negativity, when we see issues, we have to be reminded that if we think it's affecting our other team members, yeah, it probably is. Go ahead and multiply that by 5. It has a bigger effect than you realize when you have a bad apple on the team. It makes work less enjoyable to come to. Yes, some of the workload that should be handled over here is now being tossed downstream. So those are some of the harder conversations we need to have. We need to lean into healthy conflict. Lean into healthy conflict. You know what needs to be said. You know the conversation that needs to be had. Do not let it sit and simmer for months and push it off. Because what's going to happen is that stinking A player, your top dog or one of your top dogs, is going to say, you know what? If you're not going to deal with this, I'm heading elsewhere. And that usually is the wake-up call. Let's take care of negativity and challenges before it gets to that point. Awesome. So some great takeaways related to the team. I'm skipping all the way down just to keep you on your toes, Nick.
Sure.
I'm skipping all the way down to the 6th item that you had, or the second thing we're going to talk about, which is related to financials. One of my favorite topics. I love talking about financials. But when we think of a company like yours, that started only 10 years ago, you've been building it up, solid amount of revenue, solid gross profit, solid, overall profitability. I have a feeling that your growth when it comes to understanding, knowing your numbers, and approaching the financials has been a really, really strong key. What are the things that pop out at you related to financial know-how that's important?
So just to give some history to that statement, as far as my experience goes, it took me a good amount of years to understand financials. So I was not your businessman type of a guy. I'm a carpenter. I'm a hammer slinger. Get out there, take some jobs, make some money, get more popular. Neighbors are calling. I add trucks. I add people. I don't account for it in margins. I start losing money. I don't know where money's going. And so it took me quite a few years. That'll kind of connect back with another subject we can kind of touch on.
Yep.
But if you're not making a good profit, then you're not running a business. It's a hobby, and hobbies cost money. They don't make money. So you need to be making a profit. And beyond that, it's not just about yourself making a profit as a business owner. That's definitely a big part of it. But you owe it to your team to be profitable. If you are not profitable, your team will suffer and your culture will suffer.
That's really strong. Going back to the numbers, what helped, or what kind of, and maybe we'll touch on this in other areas, but what was there a light bulb moment when it comes to the numbers, or was it more like, you know what, it's not coming super easy to me, I'm starting to understand it? Was it just the consistency of looking at it, training on it, learning it, and just kind of not giving up on it and pushing through until you really had a good handle on it? Is that, because that's the story for a lot of folks. And I think a lot of folks also kind of make excuses. I'm just too busy in the field. I'm just too busy understanding that. I have a bookkeeper who helps me with that. I have a CPA. But as the owner of the business, you have to take responsibility for it. What was the key for you for it to start to click into place?
Yeah, and definitely no excuses. You have to do this. If your profit and loss, your balance sheet aren't structured properly, you need to get on it. For me, I connected with a person who I would consider a mentor, and we mentor 2 ways. So this friend of mine, also named Kyle.
Great guy. Was he
great guy?
Handsome fella too?
Yeah, he's a good looking dude. Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
And he's out in the Indy area. And Kyle was had a really strong financial background from college. I did not, but I had a really strong production background just from being in the field for so many years. So him and I used to go back and forth and share best practices, and he'd give me financial info, I'd give him production info, and it was a really good relationship that we had. But ultimately, getting things coded properly as far as cost codes in the back end of QuickBooks, chart of accounts, and then getting your profit and loss properly structured, pushing things, for us, it was pushing stuff above the line as much as possible, as far as cost of goods sold is concerned. And then starting to look at the profit and loss in terms of percentages, not so much as numbers. If we can do a profit and loss report and put in a percentage of income column on the far right, you very easily and quickly, for the guys who say that, we don't have time to dive into that, yes, you do. If you do it in percentages, it's so much easier. If you know what your target GP has to be, you'll see it. If you know what your target net is, you'll see it very quickly as far as percentage. You should at least be 10% or more, in my opinion, as far as net's concerned. And then even smaller items, I think really small items, anything that's above a 1%, I typically kind of drill down into. But it's a really good way and a really good tool as far as managing your financials.
And you mentioned, being above 10% net profit. I assume that's after we've already paid, from an owner standpoint, the owner's already paid him or herself a nice salary and the overhead expenses.
Correct.
You'd say, right? And then what are some of the other metrics that you're aiming for as far as those percentages? What comes to your mind for that?
I also like to put an owner's draw above net. Okay. So I like to get an owner's draw percentage. Hopefully it'd still be 5% or more, with still having a 10% plus net if possible, depending on your market, depending on your margin.
Yep.
But that's a big part of it. And then marketing is one that I go to a lot. As we built our company, we're in a very competitive market. There's tons of companies running around, both general contractors, design build, so on and so forth. So I like to put 4 or 5, maybe sometimes even 6% on marketing if you want to be a little risky. But if you do a risk like that, I highly recommend it be strategic, not just let's throw stuff up on the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, right. So for everybody listening, like really hammering home and understanding cost of goods sold percentage, understanding gross profit percentage. If you're aiming for, let's say, a 10% net profit, like you're kind of describing there, again, let's qualify that, because some people have good, healthy net profits, but they haven't paid themselves a dime yet. But you've got yourself a nice salary and the overhead expenses. If I'm at 30% gross profit margin and my overhead expenses, including owner salary, is 25% of revenue, I'm left with 5% net profit. Better than zero, but still not maybe what we're looking for. So starting to understand those percentages, really paying attention to them. And then you didn't mention it, but I know it's also key of doing that profit and loss, that expected versus actual, job by job. Show me the job costing. Show me exactly where this project came in, revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit. If we're paying attention job by job, the overall numbers are going to then be key. Do you love job costing, Nick?
I do. I don't do it as often as I used to. My wife does most of that at this point, but and our controller does a fine job of setting it up. But yes, we do. And then we do job autopsies as well. So especially with projects that don't fall on margin, we like to call a meeting in and then drill down with each department to see where we went wrong, so we don't repeat the mistake on the next job.
Yeah. Was it a design issue? Was it an estimating issue? Was it on the production side? If we're having meetings where we're reviewing, if you're listening to this, remodeler, are having meetings where you're reviewing your job costing very much in detail, you are going to be a better estimator, better production manager. Overall profitability will improve tremendously. And your marketing points of going, a lot of people like to say, hey, what should I be marketing percentage wise? Here's my new answer. I've been developing this of just like minimum 1%. Let's just start there, because a lot of the people listening to this are already under 1%. So we're minimum 1%. And then we're going up from there, depending, like you mentioned, your market's competitive. You're wanting to grow. You're wanting to continue to really put your branding out there and be the leader in your area. Yeah, you better get up there into that 3, 4, 5% like you're describing. That is a commitment that you're making to your marketing, and it's rewarding you through marketing and sales and results there. And then one other thing you mentioned on the financial side in your notes to me when you 5P'd is budgets, related to budgets. Talk to me about that.
If you've never done budgeting for your business, and you finally do, I promise it's a game changer for you. Your
Mm.
eyes will open up. It'll make you feel like you're not guessing anymore. So if you have a little bit of company history and data to say like, hey, we did $750,000 last year. I want to do $1 million. Cool. Let's do $1 million budget and let's put it into a spreadsheet and start moving some numbers around and seeing what that does to your bottom number.
Mm.
So we'll know how much we can spend in risk in marketing, for example. We'll know how much we can spend in offices and overheads and just all trucks, so on and so forth. It'll tell you how much money you can spend dependent on how much gross revenue you have coming in with a certain gross profit margin.
Love it.
And if you're a business that has, like, I know, business owners that they find a little sweet spot. It's usually between $2 and $3 million, or sometimes it's right around $3 million, where they say, yeah, $3 million, we're netting 20%, 25%. I want to keep it just like that. That's great. So run your $3 million budget. If you're an aspiring business owner, meaning that you're looking to grow your business, why not do, 3, maybe 4 budgets where you do one at 1 million, do one at 3 million, 5 million, so on and so forth. You can also incorporate it into a business plan. But if you do that budgeting, it'll give you an estimated amount as far as your staff is concerned. So now you can take that number and use it to build out your org chart. So filling in those spots, people that you need for when you reach a certain revenue amount so that you can handle the production, you can handle design if you do design. And then this way you're keeping your clients happy, because the last thing you want to do is get to that tipping point where you start selling a bunch of work and you underperform on the production side. Now you don't look good, and now your reputation declines, and you're spending a lot of money marketing, and they're kind of just fighting each other.
Love it. Good strategic thought there. And it can look as simple as, all right, I'm doing $1.5 million now. Man, I'd love to hire a full-time production manager. I'd love to hire a part-time designer. Cool. Let's look at it. Let's see what that looks like. All right. Where are you putting that expense? Where are you putting that expense? Let's update the budget. What does that look like? How you get to that moment of truth where you enter in the top line number, your gross profit percentage, your overhead expenses. Then you look down at that bottom and go, is it still a number that I'm happy with? If it is, wonderful. If it's not, what adjustments do we need to make? Maybe it's turning up the top line dial. Maybe it's turning up the margin dial. Maybe it's turning down the overhead dial. So I'm glad you hit on that. It's a great time of the year to be doing that. Print out your P&L or export it in an Excel spreadsheet, put the next year next to it. If you're using QuickBooks desktop that's got a budgeting feature, if you're using QuickBooks Online, make sure you're upgraded to the Plus version. That will allow you to do some job costing in there, and also opens up the budgeting section of things. So dig into that. Let's get a budget created for 2024. And one other tip, if you would like a training step-by-step on how to set up a business budget, reach out to Bailey, Bailey, at remodelersontherise.com. We'll be happy to send you our training on how to set up a business budget. That was pretty nice of me, huh, Nick?
That was a good plug.
That was a very nice one, yeah. It was a free resource, so even better. All right, so let's rapid fire a little bit through number 2 and number 3. I wanted to hit on those financials, but number 2, you talked about, you wanted to mention about finding mentors and this reminder that you're not alone. Tell us some story related to that.
Yeah, I think a lot, and I'm included in this, but a lot of times especially early on in your business career, you kind of feel like you're alone. It's just you and things are kind of secret. Like I have my own way of doing things, and there's a competitor, they probably have their own way of doing things. But ultimately, that's not the case. Like if we were to hypothetically be able to take on all the work that's available out in the world, we'd be drowned. We can never handle it. So don't be afraid to reach out to other local business owners that are successful, and just ask them for advice. Give them a call. Say, hey, let me take you out to lunch. I'd like to chat with you about leads. Let's talk leads. We're kind of slow right now. Are you guys slow? How are you guys feeling about next year? Are things looking good? I'm having trouble finding skilled labor. Are you guys having the same problem? And a lot of times you can find these folks at a local Mary chapter or pro chapter. Or you can just go out and reach out to them. There's also really great roundtabling or networking groups you can go. You can go to, for example, the Remodelers VIP Club might be a good place to go and meet other people and mentors and coaches.
Nice. That was a nice. Nick he's been paying attention to the fact that I've been promoting the Remodelers VIP Club. Nicely done. At the same time, in that interest of what you just shared, of like, most competitors, no, they're not. They're colleagues. There's plenty to be happening. You're very involved in Remodelers Advantage, right? Your trip to Michigan was visiting your Remodelers Advantage, one of your members and colleagues in that. So in the interest of what you said, I view that too. It's a good way of approaching business, of going, your competitors. Sure, some people be like, heck no, I'm not going to talk to you. You're competing against me, on that kitchen, on that addition. A huge aspect of your growth has been by getting involved in coaching groups, in peer groups. So I appreciate you plugging mine. Thank you. But also I'm happy to plug, the thing that you've been involved in as well.
I appreciate that. And just in general, having those mentors, it will springboard you as far as your business career is concerned.
Yeah.
If you allow it to. If you're open and receptive, it will absolutely springboard your business.
Yeah.
And you'll even find people with the really big egos, those that you think are not approachable. Guess what? Them giving you advice is a form of even boasting a little bit. It's a little bit of showing off, like, yeah, we used to do that years ago, but here's where we are now. Set that aside. Take it for what it is. Just absorb that information. Take advantage of it.
Yeah. There's so many opportunities to speed up your learning curve and speed up the implementation. We're living in 2023, the opportunity to meet other remodelers, to connect with them. And then what you heard with Nick, with the other Kyle example, just having the courage to pick up the phone and say, hey, I came across your website. You're kind of in a different market. I just think you're kicking butt and taking names. I was wondering if you could just tell me about your story. And I also had a couple questions of things I'm challenged with right now. You'd be surprised at how many people are so happy to do that. So don't be shy. Pick up the phone, reach out to coaches, reach out to colleagues. That's been very key, Nick, for your growth, and is a good reminder for everyone else.
It's 100%. It's a 100% a form of flattery when you're on the receiving end.
Yeah. Love it. So we're going to cover two more areas. Then we'll have any other bonus areas. We're going to talk about technology, and we're going to talk about the process side of things. Two areas that I know have been very key for you and helpful for our listeners to listen to. So technology, as far as implementing technology, integrating it into what you guys are doing, how have you approached that, or what are kind of your key things there?
So it's usually unfortunately, I have to admit, a lot of it comes out of pain. So it's not that we're seeing a problem down the pike and being like, hey, let's strategize on how to avoid this. It's usually like, there's too much going on. How do we fix this? Yeah. So technology is absolutely key. And the technology will also segue with your SOPs or procedures and process. So we're able to, I know at LBK, we are able to get a certain amount of revenue process that would normally take double the amount of employees due to the fact that we use technology. It's huge. So first and foremost, I think client-facing project management is very important. So if you're still doing things the old-fashioned way without project management software, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. So reaching out to like a job thread or a builder trend or a quote and select, I think those are great tools to use. If you use them effectively, it will help your clients feel like they're your only client, which is huge in this industry. Yeah. And it's huge for reputation.
Yeah. And for your clients, are you using it? Which software are you using these days?
We are actually migrating over to JobTread.
Nice. Currently. Cool. You coming to the JobTread conference? I'll be speaking there.
When is it? I don't know.
In January.
Know of it.
I think mid to late January. Yeah.
I cannot make that commitment.
Okay, fair enough. He might be there.
I wish I would have known earlier.
He's not saying no, folks. So he might see you there. But whether whatever you're using now or when you have JobTread fully going, you're seeing that as full communications, approving change orders, giving them some peek and some access to scheduling, all of your uploading, signing off, DocuSign, just all of these things. When you start adding it up, just really enhances the client experience, organization, efficiency, productivity, payments, all of that. That's how you have been utilizing that side of things.
100%. And then on the flip side of that, internally, that's also really important because especially as you grow, like as I was the main salesperson at LBK for many years, and I used to find myself lingering the design department, being like, hey, how go over to their desk, like, how's the Johnson project going along? We're 2.5 months away since we signed a design agreement. Have we had a presentation meeting? And I started thinking about it one day. I'm like, it's really annoying, number one, for the team to have their boss lingering around their desk and hovering. And then secondly, I said, if we grow, this is actually a problem. And this is one area where I did see it down the pike and prevented bottlenecking. So at LBK, we do use Monday.com specifically. It doesn't have to be Monday. There's Smartsheet, there's Trello, there's other platforms out there. But Monday does a good job for us as far as being able to see everything on a board, excuse me, and then being able to mark them at tasks at different points as they're done, not done, assigning people to them. And there's all these automations built within Monday where as soon as an action's done, a notification is sent over, an email sent over, things are seen. And then from the 30,000-foot view, as far as management's concerned, you're able to get weekly reports and see what things were done or were not done and address those issues. So we have a design to contract board, we have a production board, and then we have a purchase order board, which has been a game changer for us when you have many, many clients. So we have everything broken down by phase and, I'll call it phase. And then we input their model numbers, SKU numbers, square footages, when it was ordered, when delivery's coming in, was it received in good condition, was it damaged, did it have to be reordered, when's the new delivery date, so on and so forth.
And I could come in from the outside. You could point me, all right, click in there. There's our deal. I could go in there and say, hey, it looks like the Smith job. We've received the cabinets and the countertops and, the fixtures, but we don't have the tile in yet. Even from the outside, it's organized enough where I would be able to see that. Or I could, right?
Correct. And PMs go in there and check it all the time.
Yep. Do you still hover over the desk still? You
no
really?
More hovering.
No more hovering.
No more hovering.
You can still pull that move out if you need to, but like even what you're describing with the design to contract, we've got the starting block of, all right, design agreement signed, development agreement signed to contract. There are 72 things that need to happen between there. And if you are a remodeler who is kind of, sort of organized with that, you haven't really taken the time to really document step by step, let alone get some software in place to really streamline it. There is huge room for productivity, efficiency gains, and that should be maybe in your 2024 goal sheet of really creating those checklists seriously and then implementing, whether it's a Monday.com, a Trello, a JobTread, implementing those checklists and those to-dos. Time spent organizing that and following that process just really enhances the client experience, and I would say reduces cycle time, the time that it takes from the design to the contract. So good stuff there.
Yeah, interestingly enough, too, Monday will also tally time averages. So if you put in date columns, it'll give you these like color-coded time averages, meaning that as a managing, a manager that manages a certain department, you can look at it and be like, our average design to contract that's acceptable is 2.5 to 3.5 months, let's say, for example. Now, if that average goes from 3.5 months to 5 months, well, that's telling us something there, right? It means that designers have way too much on their plate. Estimators have way too much. So now maybe we need to add 1 or 2 team members there to help lighten the load, which goes back to financials. Because if we're making a profit, we could be able to fill that org chart and help out our team.
Love it.
Which goes back to culture.
It's like you're so smart. You're connecting the dots on all of these things.
They're all connected. Kyle.
Wow.
They're all connected.
And I was about to do a recap, but you just kind of did it of going, all right, we heard a little bit of the story. We talked about some of the branding aspects and some marketing items. We talked about the importance of the team members. We jumped over to financials and unpacked some things there. Got into finding mentors, making sure we're training, and then we got into technology. What's one other technology related thing that you guys are using or utilizing?
We use one thing that was a game changer for me personally as a sole salesperson that was handling, $7+ million of appointment potential.
Based.
Calendly is huge. Just being able to have that post on your website or social media where someone can go in there and book a 15-minute phone call or a Zoom call with you in an effort for you to qualify the prospect. That's huge. And then even after the qualification process, if they are a qualified person and they want to set an in-home appointment with us, we will send them out another Calendly link that books an in-home appointment. And that's a link that you only get if I send it out to you. Now, aside from Calendly, there's other things as far as automations are concerned that really help us out. So we use Pipedrive as our CRM, and we use Zapier, which is a platform that helps non-native integrations go through.
Yep.
So our Calendly does talk to Pipedrive, meaning that, hey, I don't need an admin person. There's another employee that I don't need, or team member, I should say, to take basic lead information and then sit there and input it into a CRM. They fill out the form, they answer a series of questions that I specifically ask for, and it kicks right over to Pipedrive and everything's entered. So right in my pipeline. So those automations are key. That'll help save you a lot of time and frustration. And me as a salesperson, I'm able to handle way more leads than the average person without the help of technology.
Yeah. I think that some people might be listening to this going, yeah, I heard of that Calendly thing. Yeah, I clicked on that once. I didn't really understand it. That's kind of the moment of truth, right? Are you going to continue to improve and to implement, or are you going to kind of be like, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting, but I'm not great with technology, or, well, I told so-and-so on the team to look into that. I never heard back from them. Nah, not acceptable. Thought you were a remodeler on the rise person listening to this. Lean into it, follow up on it, learn it, pull it up at 8 o'clock at night when you're just on your laptop instead of watching a show. Learn about Calendly for 45 minutes. That type of attitude of how bad do you want it? We're listening to a guy that wants it bad. Like, I'm not going to settle for $1 million business. I'm not going to settle for, profits that are low. I just from meeting you, Nick, and then hopefully from people listening to this, like you're growth minded. You want to build something that, is something that it already is something you're extremely proud of and happy about, and that's supporting your clients, supporting your team. But you've got big goals and aspirations. And the way that we do that is we build a good team around us, but how bad do you want it? You're going to dig in and you're going to learn this. You're going to dig in and learn job costs. You're going to dig in and set up a business budget. Lean into that, folks. Lean into that. I went into my buddy Terry's office this morning, who's next door to me, and I had like 1 minute before my meeting, which it's always annoying for him when I just walk in and leave. And I said, Terry, I want this morning to be straight up nasty. I see crap on your desk. I want you to attack it, kick butt. And he kind of was like, oh, okay, I guess I will. Thanks, Kyle. But sometimes our attitude and just leaning into this stuff is important. So when you mentioned Calendly, that just set me off on that. I apologize.
Just don't linger at a desk.
Yes, don't hover. And then you also wrote on here, estimating, create templates to ensure you capture all job costs so we always hit target margin. Create estimating templates. Tell us more.
I see oftentimes there's mentions of this in specific to project management and design, even on your own Facebook community, where people are like, well, what do I charge for project management? Well, if we start appropriately tracking our time and we built a yearly budget out and we take that historical data, let's say of the last year, you can narrow it down to a percentage. So for example, you might do your costing for the year and be like, you know what, about 2.5% of each project budget on average is costed towards project management. You can now add that in as a line item and then mark it up on your estimates and ensure that you're not going to lose margin based on your project manager clocking into cost of goods sold to a job. Same can be done for design.
I like that. So it's that plus it's just all of the little things that we can forget. We can easily forget this. We can easily forget that. And the stronger our estimating templates are, the faster it is to estimate as well.
Yeah, right? And more consistent.
Are your estimating templates ever going to be fully done, Nick?
Never,
right?
Never.
It's one of those areas of the business that it's going to continually, it's one of those areas that's just continual improvement. Amazing. Cool. And then if we were to wrap up with one other item here related to kind of process, just give me one or two items related to the process side of things that you found to be very important.
SOPs, standard operating procedures, getting those written out. I personally feel that the easiest way to express SOPs is through flowcharts. I'm thinking of the website that we use. It's called Lucidchart. So really easy there to visually go in, pop in bubbles with little arrows, and you can literally map out a sales process, for example, or a site survey meeting. A design agreement gets signed. Nice. What are the next steps? And spell it out, and then each team member can have their whatever flowchart is specific to their job role right out in front of them to know exactly what to do at any given point.
I like that. And that was Lucid, Lucid, lucidcharts.com. You can take a look at that. And then you also mentioned on here, probably similar to that, creating an org chart, seeing the visual of that, very powerful. But then you also wrote clear job descriptions. How's that been helpful for you?
It's really important to not hire people just based off of discussion, because there's a lot of gray area, there's a lot of vagueness. And so if you're not very clear in writing to your new team members what's expected of them, you're going to set them up for failure, and you're going to set yourself up for unachievable expectations on their end. So I'm guilty of this. I was late to the game on job descriptions at my company, but I feel like doing that and having that in place in conjunction with the org chart are really key, so everybody knows. And it's not just org charts that are important. I didn't mention accountability charts; those are important as well. Another or the same great mentor, I should say, Jeff Forward, had mentioned this to me. But letting everyone know what their lanes are and making it important, or stressing the fact that they should stay in there. Everyone should stay in their lanes.
Yeah, and if it's all verbal, that becomes elusive. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Wonderful. Nick, you shared a lot of good nuggets of knowledge. If you go to lbkdesignbuild.com, you can see Nick's website, get a feel for it. And I'm not just blowing smoke at you, I'm just trying to think of the phrase, but sometimes you use those phrases and you're like, I wonder if that's politically correct anymore. So I was going to go in a certain. Okay. That one's fine, but blowing smoke up your skirt is the one I was thinking of. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't even know what the origin of that is, but it doesn't sound appropriate.
You could just say blowing smoke.
Yeah, I'm blowing. I don't want to blow smoke at you, but what I was trying to say is the showroom that you have is absolutely gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. If Bailey's listening to this and if she's really savvy, she might go back to, I recorded a little 3-minute video when I was at Nick's office of just giving a little tour. It'd be amazing to link to that in the show notes, Bailey, if you can. But it's just absolutely gorgeous. I bet you if you go to you go to their website, you'd probably see some photos of that. Nick, what are you, to kind of conclude here, I'm going to ask you this question. This will be posted right around the end of the new year, the start of 2024. What are you excited about this new year, sir? What are you looking forward to? What's got you fired up heading into the next year?
Most of it revolves around myself at the company. So I'm just being honest. Filling job roles, like I mentioned to you earlier. I hired a design build consultant, i.e., a salesperson, and we plan on hiring a second one towards the end of the first quarter. But ultimately, that takes a lot of time off my hands to where I can go back to doing more leadership role duties, which I enjoy the most. I love identifying bottlenecks. I like creating new systems, and I like working with the team. And I wasn't really able to do that the last 2 quarters of this year. So just getting back to that core of leadership is very exciting for me.
Love it. And then I wanted to ask you this earlier, 13 in the field, 13 in the office, 2 in the field. You've gone very heavy from instead of self-performing work to very heavy on trade partners. If you were to leave our listeners with a few thoughts or nuggets on that, what would you say?
There's definitely some pros and cons, and it really depends on each person's business model. I think if you have the capability to, I don't want to say control, but in essence, control what happens in the field with your own internal staff regarding, tradesmen, that's great. For us, we found a point of diminishing returns once we cross a certain revenue threshold. And it was more beneficial for us to have a couple of carpenters on hand to do finish work, and some framing and whatnot.
Miscellaneous.
Drywall, big framing, flooring, so on and so forth. Paint, we do source out to trade partners. It allows things to be a little bit more controllable on the margin side of things, where it's more of a fixed cost. If we get a bid in from our trade partner in paint and it's $2,500, whether they finish that in 5 days or 7 days, it's $2,500.
Yeah.
So I like that aspect of it. The con, though, on the flip side, is that you kind of leave yourself a little bit exposed to relying on the trade partner. So if you don't do a good job of facilitating that relationship and keeping things understanding, then you're at risk as far as acquiring new trade partners.
Yeah, good pros and cons, and that last one of making sure that you are giving the trade partner a wonderful experience. Things are organized, things are communicated well. You're flexible when needed. You're giving them plenty of advance, notice on scheduling related things. Those we just need to remember that all of our employees, our trade partners, making sure that they are enjoying the experience of working for you is a huge aspect of this.
Paying fast is huge. Yeah. I've been told twice now by two different trade partners where they had come up to me at a job site where I just popped in to say hello and look around, and they said, in all my years of working, I've never been paid faster than Beth pays me from you guys. And that Beth's our controller, of course. Yeah. Does a wonderful job. So that goes a long way because they can get that money in, make payroll, and not have it come out of their own pocket.
Awesome. And then I'm a people pleaser, so I want to make sure you're happy. Was there one other thing that you wanted to mention that I didn't bring up or ask you about that you would be like, oh man, I wanted to tell this to the people?
I think just company identity. Okay. Figuring out what type of company you want to be, whether you want to be a general, I don't want to say regular general but a general contractor that's more focused on doing the trades work as opposed to the whole design build process. But then even if you are a design build or general contractor, figure out what demographic you want to work for. Do you want to do high-end work or do you want to do average work? And then using that as the foundation and platform for your marketing campaign and marketing strategy. Who do you want to identify with and target?
Yeah. Who is your ideal client? And, good marketing attracts the right client and it repels the wrong client. So being thoughtful of whether, like you said, the quality, the higher end type of clientele, the type of projects we take on. Good stuff. Cool. Nick, that was excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom with us.
Wow. Thank you for having me on. Much appreciated.
All right. We'll talk soon.